Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I wanted to do this lesson. I might entitle it something along the lines of, this is a perfect example of what we've been warning about, which, for those who are not aware, as per the headline of this article, it says Hochul sends 750 National Guard troops to NYC subways following spat of violence. Okay, and that's very key right there. Following spat of violence. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So as we read, I'm going to read a little bit of this. You can even see some footage here. Get ready to open your backpack or bag to National Guard troops or state law enforcement when you ride New York City's subway. Governor Hochul is deploying 750 members of the National Guard to 250 state and MTA police officers, and 250 state and MTA police officers to subway stations to inspect passengers' bags following a spat of violent incidents across the system, which, yeah, it's been getting bad. Apparently, the crime was so bad, it was just being underreported to where you had individuals that were actually even committing suicide, on the tracks and all of that. So, a lot of violence definitely has been going on there. But as we read a little bit more, I'll explain why this is a perfect example of what we've been warning about. And it might not be what you think, but what it says here is no one heading to Salakia. No one heading to their job or to visit family or go to a doctor's appointment should worry that the person sitting next to them possesses a deadly weapon, Hochul said Wednesday beside MTA chairman Jano Leiber in front of a giant system map at the MTA Rail Control Center. They shouldn't worry about whether someone's going to brandish a knife or a gun. So let's think about a couple of things here, right? So I guess what she's enacted here is to say that in order to protect against situations where somebody might have a weapon on them and pull it out on you while you're on the subway, because that's what's been ongoing, she's deploying these National Guard troops and state police to check bags to help ensure that people are not carrying weapons and trying to harm others and stuff, right? So now, if this is the solution or the mitigation measure to the problem of this kind of violence, how long does this solution stay in place? Because now are we looking at a case where so long as you have the troops there, people are not going to come in there with weapons, but then when you take the troops away, then they're going to come back with weapons. So then do you have to keep these troops there permanently? Does this now have to be a way of life where people, New Yorkers, have to get used to that in order to quote unquote protect them against this violence that's going on? So anyway, it says here, the random checks will fall well short of the body scans and pat downs of airport level security. Straffingers are already familiar with how this will work. Cops at tables performing random bag checks have appeared at subway turnstiles from time to time in the 22 years since the September 11 terror attacks. Transit officers said the state support would simply allow for more such spot checks throughout the system, and that the National Guard, MTA police, or other state law enforcement won't be patrolling the trains. The additional law enforcement power is one of a slate of state actions Hochul hopes will reduce crime underground. Well, what about above ground? A 5-point plan to rid our subways of violent offenders and protect all commuters and transit workers, as she puts it. I am sending a message to all New Yorkers. I will not stop working to keep you safe and restore your peace of mind whenever you walk through these turnstiles. So now what and exactly what she said is a form of conditioning, of priming, if you want to call it, and really gradualism, right? Because now the acceptance of troops with guns, because when you scroll down you see what it looks like, right? The acceptance of, going to the train station and seeing this, a heavy police presence, troops stationed here, random bag checks, this now is looked at as for your safety. So people actually, you know, welcome it because they're like, well, if the level of violence outweighs this weirdness of seeing these police here with troops, I mean, the worse the violence, the more welcoming people would be to seeing this, because the way they perceive it is, well, I mean, if so long as we have these men here with these guns, who's gonna come in here and try to shoot up the place? That means I'm good. I would rather take that, I don't know what, intimidation atmosphere than to worry about getting shot or stabbed in the subway. So when I say this is a perfect example of what we've been warning about, what I mean is the scenario of problem, reaction, solution, where now this is justification, right? This high level of crime and violence is justification to now station troops within subway stations, okay, and incorporate random bag checks. And it's sort of like a hand in hand, right? The worse things get, not only in the subway, because if think about it, right? Let's say this is a very efficient solution to subway violence, then one might argue, why wouldn't it also be a efficient solution to not just underground violence, but just violence in the city in general? So why not start stationing National Guard troops pretty much all throughout the city? And slowly but surely, you start to see how, this place starts to look more like a scene from Gray State. And if you're not familiar with that, look that up. Look up the trailer for the movie Gray State. Okay, but that's pretty much the point. So there's a step of gradualism in here, and then there's that problem, reaction, solution. More violence equals more acceptance of heavily policed, troops and all of that. And that's when you break down the term martial law. Okay, martial is war, or warlike. Okay, and law. So martial law is really warlike law, and it would it would only make sense to enact warlike law when your cities or society becomes pretty much a war zone because of how violent and chaotic things have become. So this is like a very low, soft level of, what we're talking about, where it can be replicated on a more intensified level. So imagine what would be possible next steps in this direction if the violence doesn't stop, and if in fact it gets worse, right? And it's just because the scriptures tell you that it will get worse. So as that starts to happen, and people feel less and less safe with what Trump calls migrant crime, this at least gives you an example of what direction their solutions will go in, which is what we've been warning you about. Because the crime will be bad, but don't be surprised if one of the other, which we read 5 points, or maybe some other point, would be enacting curfews, because a good majority of these, violent actions or incidents take place at night. So maybe they implement curfews. Who knows? And then before you know it, you start getting acclimated and accustomed to this kind of presence. Where now you go into you're going to take the subway, you can expect that maybe today might be the day your bag gets randomly checked. Okay, so let's read a little bit more. Where are we? Right. Besides the bag checks, the 5 initiatives include a $20 million plan to beef up the number of clinical teams responding to people in mental distress on subways from 2 to 10 system-wide. Another of Hochul's 5 initiatives is her support for MTA's plan to install surveillance cameras inside conductor and train operator cabs. That initiative is a direct response to the slashing of MTA conductor Alton Scott, who narrowly survived a random assault last week when he stuck his head out of his cab as his train stopped at a Brooklyn subway station. Yeah, you have situations where people are pushing people onto the tracks. And, like I've mentioned before, at some point, when as we're finding out, right, it's pretty clear that these migrants coming in here, a majority of them are committing crimes, right? Migrant crime. And it's now, come out that they are being, supported, obviously, and being sent and brought in here and shipped all throughout the country and then just released to run rampant, do what they want. So, sort of like the first Purge movie, right? Where if you want to lock down the different cities with heavy military presence or whatever it is, or you want to create an atmosphere that justifies being able to bring these draconian measures, but the average individuals, the civilians, are not giving you that atmosphere because they've been so docile and dumbed down, okay, to where if you have a school shooting, everybody's looking into it. They're already calling you out. Oh, this is a paid act, X, Y, and Z. So maybe you need to bring in overseas people who can do and create the atmosphere that you need, give you the level of violence that you need because, this crime and this deployment as a solution to the violent crime in the subway stations, that's not discriminated. That doesn't differentiate between whether it's crimes committed by migrants or crimes committed by American citizens. Crime is just crime. So if the American people won't do it, maybe we bring in some overseas people, let them do it. As long as the rates go up enough to justify what we got to do, that's fine. And it may sound crazy, but you'll see it. You're seeing examples of it now. You had various different cities that cried, defund the police, defund the police. The whole pandemic situation happened, and when you, I forgot, I think I was reading an article about it, and they were saying, you had this guy, Mayor Eric Adams, saying, hey, we need to cut the budget for law enforcement and certain state resources, EMTs, firefighters, so that we can support migrants. But now it looks like the same migrants that you cut all these budgets to support are now committing heinous acts, which you can't stop because you cut budget for law enforcement who are supposed to stop the crime, And now voila. But it's all gradual, one step at a time, one step at a time. But the day is coming where, National Guard troops standing there with their guns and all that, that's going to be, light work compared to what we know how intense things are actually going to be. But you'll find out soon enough because this is on the agenda. Where we at? MTA officials have stated that the station had multiple working surveillance cameras, but none were pointed at the conductor's mid-platform position when Scott's late-night A train pulled into the Rockaway Avenue station in Bedford, Stuyvesant. Transit brass declined to comment Wednesday on how many other stations might need upgrades to their camera coverage, citing security concerns. Yeah, maybe bring in some drones too, and them robot dogs. Let's see what else is in here. Hochul's fourth initiative is proposed legislation to ban anyone convicted of an assault on transit from the system for 3 years. If you've been convicted of an assault, you can't take the MTA. Currently, the law allows a ban only on those who are convicted of assaulting a transit worker. Her fifth initiative is improved coordination between MTA officials and district attorneys and police. That initiative will include regular meetings to discuss subway crime, the first of which is scheduled for next week. So there's more to come, and we'll see. we'll see as it rolls out. Now, whether this is exclusive to just New York or maybe other places will follow suit soon. I mean, let's see. But New York, you really hear, you know, a lot because the whole MTA, right, subway system and all of that. So it says, as part of that fifth initiative, Hochul said the MTA will hire a new criminal justice advocate to assist or victims of crime in the system. Okay, what else we got? It says the NYPD is fighting a 15.5% jump in felony assaults at city subway stops and trains. Yeah, and on top of that, people are just, bugging out a lot more recently. Police have counted 97 such assaults in the subway system this year as of Sunday, 13 more than in the same period of 2023. Misdemeanor assaults, slaps, punches, and other relative minor attacks are down 3.9% for the year, with 249 misdemeanor assaults as of Sunday. What else we got? Yeah, and then it goes on more and more. Let's see what's going on here. Adams said the checks will be random and that the police department won't engage in any profiling. But this is also called the foot in the door, right? Where, and I just made that up off the top of my head, but pretty much all they need is to put their foot in the door. That's all they need, and then slowly but surely they work their way in. Okay, so the reason it's called gradualism is because it's a gradual process. They're not gonna say, hey, there were 2 stabbings on the MTA, shut down the whole city, set up checkpoints, bring in the troops, set up curfew, lock everything down. They're not going to do that because 2 stabbings on the MTA does not justify all of that. And people are going to, outright, push back against it. So it says, people who don't want their bags checked can turn around and not enter the system, he said. So this is but then, right? Usually it's not that simple. You don't want your bag checked. You become suspicious. So what if you try to turn around, but they're like, no, come here. Let me check that bag. And then it turns into an altercation and then blah, 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 blah. But this is one of those the ball is in your court kind of, situation where it's like, oh, well, we're not going to we're not going to pin you down and check your bag. But, if you want to use the subway or the MTA, well, you better have that bag ready. You better secure that bag. Anyway, the governor's plan to put National Guard soldiers in the subway system was met with alarm from civil libertarians. This plan is whiplash inducing. The city only recently trumpeted safety data. Donna Lieberman, executive director of the New York City Liberties Union, said in a statement, these heavy-handed approaches will, like stop and frisk, be used to accost and profile Black and brown New Yorkers, ripping a page straight out of the Giuliani playbook, she said, comparing Hochul to the former Republican mayor. And always keep in mind, right, that there's such a thing called controlled opposition. So whenever they push for one thing, they have to, from within, have another side or another hand that attempts to push back. This allows, and this is actually a tactic they use, this allows the actual people who you can say are like in the middle to feel like they have a choice, a false sense of choice, which gives people more, it makes them calm down more because they're like, all right, you know what? We have a choice. We're gonna stand on the other side. At least there's people opposing this. This isn't like just being shoved down our throats. But what ends up happening is one way or another, in a roundabout way, they're gonna still get what they want, whether overtly or covertly. And how they're gonna do that? Well, let's imagine a situation where they say, okay, Hochul is doing this, and this is gonna lead to like what we just read, Black and brown people being profiled and harassed. And then there's like a major surge in like either like a major surge in many subway accidents, not accidents, but crimes and violence, shootings and all of that, or maybe some major terrorist attack or something happens where now it's like, okay, at first it was a back and forth. I said it's a good idea to bring troops. You said no, it's going to cause racial profiling. Well, now look at the situation we're in. So we're going to do what we're going to do or what? Anyway, let me finish it off here. It says we shouldn't militarize the MTA when crime rates are falling and budgets are contracting, he said in a statement. I fear how many New Yorkers will be wrongly harassed or wrongly arrested or hurt before we recognize that soldiers have no place on the streets of democracy. Once again, this allows for justification when the time comes to say, okay, well, if this is how you feel, which we anticipated this is how you would feel, let's see what happens when we turn up the heat a bit more. Once again, problem, reaction, solution. Crime is going up, throw some troops in there, see how they react. Oh, they're saying that no, that's still too much. Okay, let's increase the crime a bit more. When it gets real bad, they themselves will come back to us and say, hey, I think we need those troops after all. That's just an example of this tactic here. But anyway, let me go here real quick. This is the book of Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 26. And it reads, mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. And this is, quite key here, right? Applying this to, at least this time that we're in. The worst part about a bad time is a bad time within a bad time. So something is already going wrong, and then something else that exacerbates that situation happens. Like you watch those TV shows, those movies, things are going bad for the main character, and then he turns around and says, can it get any worse than this? And then right then and there, it gets worse. So you can imagine that happening. As one thing happens that's bad enough, you don't even have a handle on it yet. Boom, another thing happens. Boom, another thing happens. Almost like the story of Job. As he's being told about one misfortune, another one happens, then another one, then another one. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest and counsel from the ancients. See? So when these things start going down, they are going to seek. That's when they're going to want to hear what the men of the Lord have to say. But we're not going to be speaking at that time. Okay? We ain't going to be speaking at that time. So guess what? You're going to need to find another way around that. The king shall mourn, and the prince shall be clothed with desolation, and the hands of the people of the land shall be troubled. I will do unto them after their way, and according to their deserts will I judge them, and they shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh. Yeah, because at the end of the day, when this turns into the dystopian futuristic movie scene, as the scriptures tell you in 2nd Ezra 15, the city shall be troubled. Guess what? It's going to be because, as the scriptures say, because of their pride and arrogance, because of their reluctance to turn back to the Heavenly Father. He's going to bring judgment. So he's going to get your attention one way or the other. Anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. As things are definitely, happening, this year is looking real interesting. And as Yahweh Shai warned us, we got to watch as well as pray. All right, so stay in the spirit and stay circumspect. Anyway, with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.